bunch of black people drag a 9-year-old white kid into the woods and beat the hell out of him. Hi, this is Colin Flaherty. I'm the author of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. Here we talk about black mob violence, black on white crime, the knockout game, all without racism, without rancor, without apologies. So this isn't that much of a unique crime, but there's a couple questions I want to ask at the end of this video. So let's just get to it, because even as bad as it is, there's a couple of more things in there that might just have slipped by you unless you've read Don't Make the Black Kids Angry.
A 9-year-old is brutally attacked by teenagers who recorded the whole thing. Now he's talking only to Channel 11 News about what happened.
What were you thinking when he was dragging you?
He's gonna kill me.
9-year-old Lucas Wright shows us the marks on his shoulder and neck where police say he was dragged into a secluded area by a group of kids. Police say a 15-year-old boy beat and punched him while another teen recorded the assault, egging it on using racial slurs.
And then he punched me in the stomach and I fell. And then I fell on the ground with my head down, and he came and jumped on me on the concrete.
As Lucas retold his horrifying story, his mom couldn't stop crying.
While they were attacking him, videoing it and laughing at him and telling him they were going to do it next, if he didn't start standing up for himself, that he needed to get up and stand up for himself or they were all going to do it.
From her porch, Grandma can see the Katanning Rails to Trails where she allows Lucas to play. When she lost sight of him, she went looking for him.
He was bleeding from his mouth. There was blood on his chest. There was blood on his back. He had blood on his arms.
Katanning police have ID'd the boys involved and confiscated their phones.
We did secure 2 cell phones. Currently, the cell phones have been wiped. They will be sent out to be processed to see if that video can be pulled from the phone.
Okay, so here's the first question I want to ask. How many victims were there in this crime? The little boy? He got the hell beat out of him. When you get the hell beat out of you when you're 9 years old by a bunch of black people, that will change your life forever. So he's a victim. But if you look at the police reports and this kind of thing, that is listed as, the injuries are listed as minor. What about the mom? Is she a victim? Her life is changed forever. What about the grandmother? Is she a victim? Her life is changed forever. Hey, okay, now here's the part for the Don't Make the Black Kids Angry readers. Did you pick up just 3 little words in that report they just went right by? It's called Rails to Trails. It's a big national program, right, where they take all these railroad right-of-ways that are abandoned, they buy them, and they turn them into trails. Well, in places like North Carolina, Florida, lots of other places around the country, these trails are, like maybe a dozen, 25, 30, 35, 40 miles of, really nice bike trails, really nice, hiking trails, except for the parts that go through the black neighborhoods. And when people do that, the trails become hunting grounds. The people who use the trails are soft targets. And you don't get much softer than a 9-year-old boy accosted by a group of older black people. Earlier this week, Drudge had a big story from the Wall Street Journal about how the crime rate is up and everything like that. It's all because of Ferguson. And that's that story came out of the Wall Street Journal. I remember after I wrote White Girl Bleed a Lot, I got before the knockout game, a lot of people were talking about flash mobs, but nobody was talking about this was black mob violence almost exclusively all over the country. I documented it. So I got a call from the Wall Street Journal. They had their own radio show that has since gone off the air. And the guy goes, "Hey, Colin, we hear you're the expert on flash mobs." I said, yeah, okay. So they started asking me questions. And the very first, just to save everybody a lot of time, I always kind of tell people what's going on right up front. I said, oh yeah, these flash mobs are examples of an epidemic of black mob violence happening all over the country that reporters are denying, condoning, ignoring, condoning, excusing, encouraging, even lying about. You know what? I'm on a back porch in a nice little rural town at the moment doing this thing. And in the back, you can hear bullfrogs. They kind of sound like crickets. Well, that's what I heard on the radio that day when they were taping it. It's like, as soon as I heard the pause, I knew, okay, this interview isn't going to last long, and it's never going to get on the air. Sure enough, it never did. So the Wall Street, so when I hear reporters, doing all these stories now, some of these stories now going, well, it seems like we've got a problem with crime in this country now. And you know what? We didn't know about that before. Well, that's bull, because a lot of them did know it. Especially in Baltimore. So Baltimore, they have an enormous amount of black mob violence, black on white crime in Baltimore. And in Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, I tell the story about a tourist from New Jersey, went to Baltimore, the Inner Harbor, the very nice, upscale area. She was in her hotel, far above the street. She looks down. She sees a group of like 50 to 100 black people rampaging through the Inner Harbor. They're fighting, they're destroying property, they're, doing all sorts of bad things. So she goes, well, that doesn't really happen where I come from. And so she gets back to New Jersey, her part of New Jersey, and she calls the cops. She goes, what happened there? I'm just kind of curious. What were those guys? What were those black people doing, rampaging through the downtown Inner Harbor? The guy who answers the phone goes, well, I don't know what you're talking about. No report. No big deal. Remember, this is the same part of town where state legislator Pat McDonough wrote a letter to then Governor O'Malley saying we have to declare the Inner Harbor a no-go zone because black people are terrorizing tourists and locals alike there. Lots of black mob violence in the Inner Harbor. Of course, everybody jumped all over O'Malley for being a bad person. Anyway, so this woman from New Jersey also called the reporter from the Baltimore Sun. And the reporter from the Baltimore Sun was kind of like shaking his head from side to side. He was kind of getting weary of explaining to tourists and all of his friends who were always asking him the same questions about crime. Man, crime in Baltimore seems really bad, they would say. And man, is it kind of getting bad in Baltimore? And the reporter goes, I guess these crime statistics don't matter. I mean, very patronizing. And nobody wants to listen to the crime statistics. The crime in Baltimore is down a whole bunch. It's a lot safer, but nobody wants to hear that. They just want to pick on these isolated examples and generalize them into untrue conclusions. Well, and Don't Make the Black Kids Angry, we slice and dice that up into about 1,000 little parts. And here's the fact on crime statistics all over the country. The crime is underreported in large cities all over the country, especially in places where violent crime is a black thing. Front page story, New York Times. Really, really difficult to get arrested in New York now. Really, really difficult to get a cop to take a police report. Same in Baltimore. When there was an enormous amount of black mob violence in downtown Baltimore 2 summers ago, the Governor O'Malley, then Governor O'Malley, suggested publicly that Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, maybe she should put more cops on the street. And, Rawlings Blake was very indignant that they were not going to arrest their way out of that mess. In fact, she was very proud of the fact that instead of arresting 100,000 people a year, they were only arresting 50,000 people a year. If you cut your number of arrests in half, I promise you your crime rate is going to plummet. What about New Orleans? New Orleans was underreporting crime. They were reporting felonies as misdemeanors. One of the most common ones, of course, is a bunch of black people clonk somebody over the head, steal their iPhone. Now, is that robbery, felony, or is that theft, a misdemeanor? Often they would just do it as theft, because there's an enormous amount of pressure to underreport crime, to let the crime go down. Everybody can stand up saying they're doing a good job. When de Blasio was was sworn in as mayor of New York City last year, Harry Belafonte got up there and he started talking about the mass incarceration, the cradle to prison pipeline, and how awful it was that they're arresting so many people in New York, and damn it, that's going to change under this new guy's watch. Well, 2 days later, one of former Mayor Bloomberg's top aides, writes a little story in the New York Times, op-ed saying, "Hey, what are you talking about? We have reduced arrests in New York City 30 to 50%." So, and everybody's kind of bragging about how they're arresting fewer people now. So that, in Baltimore just the other day, that was like the crime. That was the juxtaposition, right? Cops in Baltimore in the last month or so are arresting like way fewer people, like half as many people again. They're just not arresting people down there because when they go places, they're always surrounded by black people, taunted, attacked, which I documented. Don't make the black kids angry. This is happening all over the country, and it's been happening all over the country. So in Baltimore, arrests are way down. That means crime is way down, but the actual crime is way up. I mean, there are people in Baltimore going, now this is like anarchy here. It's an unbelievably dangerous place. And many other examples of how crime has been underreported in chocolate cities for several years. In Detroit, they found 11,000 rape kits in a warehouse. 11,000 rape kits in a warehouse. What do you think that does to your crime rate? In Milwaukee, they found Milwaukee and Los Angeles, they found all sorts of crimes that were just basically not entered on the books. This is happening all over the country. The other day, Carolyn, so for the last almost year now, my little mantra has been public officials like Stephanie Rawlings Blake, when they see 1,000 black people rampaging down the streets of Baltimore, they are not looking at them as criminals. They're looking at them through the lens of race. Can't tell you how much this is happening right now. You have to really keep your eyes open for this. Places like Baltimore, they're looking at everything through the lens of race. So when they see 1,000 black people rampaging through the streets of Baltimore, those are not criminals. Those are not thugs. Those are victims of white racism. And that's how she treated them. So she let the criminals have a fair, she let them roam the city without threat of consequence, attacking the cops, didn't let the cops put on riot gear, didn't let the cops put on all the stuff they need to protect themselves. Cops weren't allowed to fight back once they had, rock thrown at them and stuff like that. Enormous amount of that's on video. A couple days ago, another video just came out. I really like this one. This was the state attorney of Baltimore. She was coming out and saying the same thing that, I kind of, when you do these kind of videos or these kind of podcasts, sometimes you try to dramatize it by saying, yeah, they look at everybody. They don't look at these people as criminals. They look at them as the victims. Well, that's what the city attorney of Baltimore came out and said. She said, they're not thugs. They're children. These are people that are ruining. These are people that have ruined Baltimore. And where's the anger? Where's the determination to make people in Baltimore safe? Getting crazy out there, people. That's why your friends probably need a copy of Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. This book documents how crazy it is all over the country, and it didn't just start getting crazy a few weeks ago. It's been crazy a long time. This stuff in Pittsburgh is just the latest craziness. This is Colin Flaherty with Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. Talk to you next time.